Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. The Michigan Wolverines come in at number 9 in our way too early top 25. And Michigan surprised a lot of people last year by going 12-2, finally beating Ohio State, winning the Big Ten, and ultimately making the college football playoff before falling at the hands of the eventual national champions in Georgia. The Wolverines once again have sky-high expectations going into 2022. After what happened last year, they've got a taste of success. They've got some taste of victories, and they want more. Michigan once again will find themselves as a top 10 team. They will find themselves as a Big Ten title contender, and maybe a team that can make a return trip to the college football playoff. The million-dollar question is, can they do it with so many losses on the defensive side of the ball, and can they do it with such a difficult schedule? So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys, as we give you a brief Michigan football outlook and take a look at their schedule going into this upcoming season. Before we do that, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. Again, it all helps us out so much here at the Gridiron Expert, and we want you to become a part of our Gridiron Expert team. So if you love college football, if you love stats, if you love predictions, if you love weekly analysis, if you want to learn more just about the game of college football, this is the place for you. So join our team today, become a part of the GE Nation, and help our channel grow. So we take a look at Michigan, guys. Again, they finally made the college football playoff last year. Not many people expected the Wolverines to do that. Not many people expected the Wolverines to beat Ohio State, let alone win the whole conference entirely and then make, again, the playoff before falling to Georgia. But they lose so much. They almost lost Jim Harbaugh. Many thought he would bolt for the NFL. He stuck around. They lose their offensive coordinator in Josh Gaddis. They lose Hassan Haskins at running back. They have a quarterback battle going on now between J.J. McCarthy and Cade McNamara. Still up in the air on that one, even though McNamara started the majority of last year. And the defense loses so much star power from one of the best units in the country last year. They lose Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive line, possibly the number 1 overall draft pick here in a few weeks. They lose David Ajabo. They lose their linebacker in Josh Ross. They lose a handful of starters in the secondary. This is a Michigan defense that is pretty depleted. Yes, they've recruited well. Yes, they've got guys waiting in the wings. They're not going to completely fall apart. But you would be crazy to think this Michigan defensive unit will be about the same or better than it was last year. So a handful of questions across the board. The million-dollar question now is, will the Wolverines be able to navigate that? Will they be able to handle those questions and handle and navigate such a difficult schedule? Such is life in the Big Ten, especially the Big Ten East. You're going to have a difficult schedule. But Michigan does not benefit from drawing Iowa out of the Big Ten West, especially that one coming on the road, having to travel now to Ohio State after beating the Buckeyes last year, and of course facing a handful of other teams that have shown improvement, even if they do get to host them in the Big House. So let's take a look at their schedule really quick. The first thing that stands out to me more than anything is the fact that Michigan does not leave the state, does not leave the Big House until October. Their first 4 games, Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, and Maryland, first off, will probably all be victories. Maryland, without a doubt, the most difficult opponent in that 4-game stretch. But Michigan does not have a road game until October 1st. So if the Wolverines can, in fact, start off 4-0, not only is it a great opportunity to work out any issues on defense, to work out maybe their quarterback problems, but to gain a lot of confidence, remain a top 10 team before they go into what could possibly be a top 10 or 15 showdown at Iowa. And this is going to be one of the more difficult games of the season for the Wolverines. I mean, we know how difficult Kinnick Stadium is for any visiting team. Kinnick Stadium at Iowa is a very difficult place to play, especially at night. Michigan did demolish the Hawkeyes in the Big Ten Championship. What was it, 42-3? Annihilated them in the Big Ten Championship last year. But things might be a little different now with it not being a neutral site, with Iowa returning a handful of starters, but both teams to me struggling on offense. This is a game that more than likely is going to be a low-scoring defensive battle. Would be shocked to see Michigan dominate like they did in that championship game. But Iowa has a lot of offensive questions to figure out, but should have a relatively strong defense. And the same can ultimately be said for the Wolverines. So that's a very tough test for them. And for me, guys, I think actually the toughest stretch of the year begins with Iowa. I think the entire month of October will be the most difficult stretch for Michigan football. The game at Kinnick Stadium, not going to be an easy one. Then you get a road game at Indiana. The Hoosiers were disappointing last year, went 2-10. Many are going to be picking Michigan to win this game, and rightfully so. Again, we're not here to predict anything right now, But if I had to pick right now, I would be picking Michigan, 100%. Although I do think the Hoosiers bounced back a little bit after such a disappointing 2021. They then get Penn State and Michigan State. So really, we're grouping Indiana into this cluster here of these 4 games. Really, it's the 3 against Iowa, Penn State, and Michigan State that are going to define Michigan's season. With the exception of Ohio State, and we'll get to that. But when we mean define, we mean making sure they're still Big Ten title contenders, maybe playoff contenders. Because if they lose 2 of these games, they're done. And we know that. But if Michigan comes out of October, goes into the month of November with an undefeated record or just 1 loss, all bets are off. And the game against Ohio State at season's end could very well determine who wins the division, or maybe could determine who gets into the college football playoff when it's all said and done. But the game against Penn State will not be easy. Michigan narrowly escaped the Nittany Lions last year, 21-17. They lost to the Spartans last year, 37-33. They were undefeated. Michigan was. They were 7-0 going into that game against the Spartans, and then lost 37-33. So again, those 2 games in the Big Ten East against the Nittany Lions and against the Spartans will play a major role in who wins that division and whether or not Michigan should still be taken seriously. They get the benefit from both those being at the Big House. Both those games are in Ann Arbor. They get a bye week before they play the Spartans, so a week of rest before coming up against one of their biggest rivals and one of the biggest games of the year. But ultimately, guys, the entire month of October, especially the Iowa, Penn State, Michigan State games, are the biggest on Michigan's schedule, and there's no doubt about that. Because you get into the month of November, and the 3 games before Ohio State are all very winnable for Michigan. They have a road game at Rutgers, a Rutgers team that's improving drastically, a Rutgers team that snuck into a bowl game, despite not having 6 wins, still snuck into a bowl game last year before falling to Wake Forest, but in Ann Arbor last year only fell to Michigan 20-13. This is not a game that Michigan can afford to overlook because it is on the road, and they cannot afford to be high off the win over Michigan State or low after a loss to Michigan State. Whatever the result is there could be some sort of hangover, and Rutgers is capable of taking advantage of that and beating Michigan, no doubt about it. Michigan should take care of business. Nebraska, they narrowly escaped Nebraska last year, 32-29. The Cornhuskers, new offensive coordinator Mark Whipple, hoping to rejuvenate this Cornhuskers program that was 3-9 last year, the best 3-9 team in college football history. Nebraska should show signs of improvement, but do they have enough to come into Ann Arbor and win? Same for Illinois. Illinois shot Penn State last year. What was that, like a 6, 7, 8 overtime game? Phenomenal game. Brett Bielema showing improvement with the Fighting Illini, but it will be senior night for Michigan at the Big House. Will Illinois certainly have enough to come in here and win that game? As of right now, probably not. Those first 3 games before Ohio State, not too bad. Then you've got the game at the Horseshoe, and Ohio State has revenge on their mind. Michigan dominated that game last year against the Buckeyes. Ohio State had no answer for the Michigan run game. Michigan won that game 42-27, and the Buckeyes absolutely are out for revenge. They absolutely are out to avenge that loss from last year, and this game certainly could have major, not just implications for who wins the division and ultimately gets the Big Ten championship, but playoff implications if Michigan and Ohio State are maybe both undefeated at this point. One of them is a 1-loss team at this point. Both teams very well could be in the hunt for the playoff come November 26th, and that's going to make the stakes even higher, just like they have been multiple times in the last few meetings between the Wolverines and the Buckeyes. So again, guys, you look at this schedule again. It could be worse. 100% could be worse. But the road game at Iowa, the road game at Ohio State, not ideal. Getting Penn State and Michigan State at home is ideal. It's just the fact that those 2 games are kind of grouped into a very tough cluster there, again, the entire month of October. So the entire month of October will dictate the success of Michigan's season. By the time the final horn sounds on October 29th against Michigan State, you will know whether Michigan should be taken seriously as a Big Ten title contender, seriously as a college football playoff contender, or if they're going to fall just short. By the time that happens, again, guys, we know that if they do emerge undefeated out of the month of October, do emerge as only a 1-loss team out of the month of October, more than likely it's going to be the game at Ohio State that determines everything. Would we be surprised by that? Absolutely not. That's what we would want. Another game, the game, with high stakes. But ultimately, the month of October will determine whether or not we have a huge game on November 26th, or whether it's more of a bigger game for Ohio State than it will be for the Wolverines. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. We want you to join our Gridiron Expert team, guys. We want you to become a part of the GE Nation, and you can do that by supporting our channel right here on YouTube. So don't hesitate. Join our team today. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.